What's good, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. What? Welcome back. Sorry. In today's video, I'm just gonna be yapping, straight yaps. Apparently, I already recorded this video, but somehow the footage got lost, or like it just never registered. So I'm just gonna redo it again and do it for a video. It was kind of pretty choppy. I was gonna play Clash Royale and put it in the background while I was talking about this, but I don't think it really worked out. Um, so yeah, I just wanted to. The main point of this video was why senior year of high school was the year my life changed. Um, so let's begin. Um, so we're gonna start all the way back to junior year of my high school year, and I was in the midst of baseball, and I was doing all that, and then kind of mid-season, I'm like, I want to go play football next year. So my mom was on board for it. So once the spring season was over, summer came. I signed up for everything, signed up for football, make sure like the final forms and like you can like consent from your parents and that the documents were in. Those were all in, and went to summer training. Summer training was a lot of fun. Definitely was out of shape, was terribly out of shape, but they quickly got us back into shape, and we were rock and rolling. Um, the whole summer goes by. We were doing really well. Training was really well. We had two preseason games. One was like an intramural scrimmage, so like we were just scrimmaging with two other teams at home, like at our stadium, and then the second preseason game. This was more like a preseason game. We went to a school, and it was a preseason game. Everything was set up. They had the scoreboard, and they had everything set up. I had some salty food. Um, so I did great. I was actually playing really well. During the summer, they had me at tight end. Then our offense apparently didn't use tight ends anymore. They just like stopped using it. So I went from tight end to linebacker. Once I was at linebacker, I was doing all right. I wasn't doing great. The defensive coordinator is like, "Hey," he got the D line coach. He's like, "Hey, we've been discussing. We want you to go play D line. We really think you'll have a spot there. We think you might do better here, and you'll actually get a spot." And the D line coach, like, I knew who he was. I had him as a teacher one year, my sophomore year, and he was like, "I'm excited for you to play for me. And let's get to work." And at first, I was hesitant, but I trusted the process. One of the things he said was trust the process, and I trust it, and I did very well. That preseason game, the second one, we went away. I read a screen very well, and I didn't get a pick six. It's pretty dumb, but I like caught the ball. I read the screen, so I instead of like going towards the quarterback, I went backwards, and the quarterback literally like it was so crazy. He threw the ball at me, like he intentionally wanted to throw at me, but I was just right in front of the person that he wanted, or the wide receiver that he wanted to throw it to. So I literally just caught it and I started going. Um, I ended up I had blockers going like blocking the inside part of the field. So but my dumb a my dumb butt went instead of going outside and staying on the side of the sideline, I went in, and I eventually tripped because my legs gave out. I was freaking the whatever it's called just started building up in these quads. So, um, but yeah, I did really well. And the first game rolls by, um, and we lost, but I think it was just first game of the season. I think we still need to like figure out everything, figure out the pieces. And so I'm like, all right, I can't. All right, let's. Week 2, we're playing against. We were playing against a really good team, but like, we're like, I'm like, let's get better. Let's get better. Maybe we'll not win next week, but hopefully the weeks after we can win. We should have won this game. Let's win the next couple of weeks. Did all the training. Monday is our like review kind of day, but also like we have pads, but we just do a bunch of drills. Tuesday we pop pads, not like intensely, but like we do a bunch of hitting drills, and then we will go team. So it was very like active. Wednesday was a little bit less than that, more review with a mix of drills, and then Thursday was straight review. Went through the entire week. Did my strength training, did everything. I did my whole routine. Friday comes around, we return it, we get it, or no, sorry, we kick it. We kick it to the opposite team, and we were on defense first. And this is how the second half we would get the ball. The first defensive play of the game, I go down. And I'm literally like, I'm going down, my knees to my chest. What had happened was, first off, this was the moment that my life changed. This exact day, it was like August, I even remember, August 30th, 2024. This was the day my life completely changed. Completely changed. What had happened was my kneecap, so here's your knee, you have the kneecap going from the femur, and the tendons connecting to the femur, and then connecting to the tibia. I'm pretty sure, I'm not a doctor, so don't quote me on it. The kneecap's right here. What had happened was, since my kneecap is so, not abnormal, but it's so loose and different from like a normal human body or normal human knee, it's so loose that it, from you guys, so like this would be inside, so it went outside. The kneecap literally went outside. And when I was holding my knee close to my chest, my kneecap was still popped out. I couldn't feel it at all because like adrenaline started going to my brain, and like I couldn't feel it. I was like screaming, like I literally thought I had an ACL tear. No joke. Literally thought my knee was torn apart, and I was like, I had to do a whole year of rehab just to get back to just doing anything. But they eventually got my leg to straighten out, and that kneecap, once they straightened out, I'm pretty sure that kneecap, instead of going out here, it went back into place on its own, which is a really good sign. At the time, we didn't know, but like that's a really good thing for it to happen. Instead of like forcing it back in by the trainer, it just went on its own. And I was out. Just out of the rest of the game. Couldn't come back. They put ice on it, but the adrenaline was starting to wear off, and the pain started to sear. So my knee was starting to swell up, and it was starting like any kind of pressure would just pain, just straight up, just freaking, just like a punch, literally that, like my leg, you just little tap, like that, freaking punch of pain to the knee. Barely could move it. I was on the sideline, like I still couldn't believe it happened. So I was on the sideline learning how to use crutches for the first time ever in my life, and trying to speed my way. We had like a baseball, or like a facility. It's mostly used for baseball and softball, but because it had like a bunch of nets and like machines, but it was also used for halftime for us. And so instead of walking super far away into the locker room, we would just walk a little bit and just bam, we're right there. So, as I'm trying to get off the field, I'm crutching, just freaking, sometimes my foot, just, they hit the ground like that, and it was just, see how fast I was? So, like, it was just, just that, literally just that. And I come, after the game, I come home, a lot of people was supportive, and, a lot of people that I knew, like at school, and a lot of people I knew outside, I'm very thankful for them and giving me their blessing, and, they were really thoughtful and say like, hey, I hope he gets better, I hope you recover fast, and I'm really grateful for those people who, gave a crap and decided to reach out. That night, I realized that I was going to be out for a while. I was going to be done for a while, and I was not going to be able to walk for a little bit. And to me, this was devastating because out of my 17 years, I never had anything like this ever happen to me. And what makes this experience, like, even like if you're watching this and like how an injury goes, like, this process. At the time, I didn't know. I didn't know, but I was about to experience it. I don't even know where to begin. Like, first came, the mental part. Let's start with the mental. Like, physically, it's pretty self-explanatory. Okay, rewind. Physical. We're gonna start with the physical part. I was on crutches for 2 weeks. Then I finally got off of crutches, and then about a week later, I was back to almost fully walking normally again, but I still had to get used to, like, balancing my weight. I had to go get an MRI because at one point my recovery was stagnant, and they were like, it's not really progressing, so we think you should get an MRI. So I went to go get an MRI. Turns out it's just a bunch of bruising, and my MCL was at like a sprain 1. Sprain 1. So sprain 1, bunch of bruising, and just a bunch of little tears, except from the MCL. So it was good news because it was an ACL tear. Like, this wouldn't have take as long as like an ACL tear or tearing something completely. But the mental side of this came into play when I got the phone call from my mom. She was saying like, hey, you don't have any, the results came in, you don't have an ACL tear. We didn't think this would be, it's not as bad as we thought it was going to be. And on the phone, and even like later when me and my mom discussed this, she could hear my, what's the right word? She could hear my tone. I was disappointed in the results. And this is where like the mental like was really starting to begun. I, for some reason, wanted to experience more pain than I already was in, which at the time was, I don't know, like, I didn't realize it, but at the time, like, I was in the most amount of pain I could possibly be in. And so I was just disappointed. And in the moment, I'm like, why am I disappointed? But at the same time, like, I just want more pain. And the weeks following that was just even more struggle. Like, a lot of times I would feel alone. I would feel like, I have support. But I would just feel alone. I would just feel like in this bubble. Like, I would just be in this room and just this bubble. And I just felt like by myself. So, and then just, getting on myself about, I can't walk. I can't I can't walk normally. I can't, run. I can't, take my dog for a walk. I really enjoyed doing that, but I couldn't do it because I couldn't walk on my own two legs. So it really messed with me. And the combination of beating myself down and being alone were a recipe for disaster. Were like just crazy in my mind. Um, but how so like I couldn't come back for the season. And the big thing was why this was all these mental problems was having because I couldn't tell if I could come back or not. And by the time I made my decision, it was like week 9. And looking back at it now, it was pretty obvious that I was not going to be able to play. Like, if I was thinking logically, just would have said no. Just would have hung up the jersey, hung up the cleats, hung up the pads and just say, I need to, I gotta live, with a full working body, a healthy body. And so, but it was just so like, I was just so confused and I was just so like in a different state that it was just messing with me. And I was trying my absolute hardest to come back and I'm like, hey, I can. But at the same time, there was a part of me that was like, no, you can't. Like, you should probably just be done. I eventually, after 2 days of practice, I was practicing Monday, like I said earlier, Monday are like drills and review day. Tuesday was popping pads. That Wednesday, I did both of those days. I was fine. Wednesday, my knee was acting up and my body was sore and it was tired. And my body was just like, no, I can't do this. And that's the moment I knew I was done. I couldn't come back to playing football again. And I wouldn't be able to play football ever again in my life. Like tackle football. So it helped me out a lot, knowing that. But it also, I was heartbroken by this because I put so much time and effort into something I really enjoyed. And I got a bad, like, response out of it. Or a bad outcome. An outcome that I didn't want to happen. And in the moment, it felt terrible. But, like, this was only a part of the story. Like, this was a whole story. This was only, like, between the beginning and the middle. And I remember even one day, like, I'm going to be, like, just lay it out for you guys. Like, one day I was so frustrated we were practicing, and I was just so frustrated, and I started crying, or, like, I was about to cry, and my coach came up to me, the D-line coach, he was like, yo, like, what's going on? And so I started explaining, and I started, going, and I started crying, and it was a combination of the team wasn't where I expected it to be at, and I knew we could do better. People not being accountable for, we can work harder. Like, other groups can do better. And the third one was not everyone was invested in the program. And then fourth was, like, my injury, not being able to play and, just put my heart on the field. Put my, just putting everything I got into the field. I couldn't do that. So he helped me out and made me, kind of realize that, stuff like this is going to happen. And it's one day at a time. It's, it's every day you have an opportunity to build. And you just, like, take, like, building blocks. You have one block. You start with one block and then you build another. One day after another, you just keep stacking. And, it'll take you somewhere. And so he explained to me, that's Take it one day at a time. So, season was over, and um, I'm sorry, I'm just trying to like explain where I want to take this story. One thing that really impacted me was the training room, and I'm so grateful for the people that helped me out. But there was a certain point where I finally realized that like I was in an environment that was more toxic than beneficial for me in my state of mind. And one day was like a Wednesday or something, and me and my one friend were there because my one friend had gotten hurt as well. And the main trainer, there's like a bunch of student trainers, and the main trainer who operates and run it, he was like, hey, winter's coming up, winter sport's about to happen. We're gonna need you guys to come in at like 3:30 because we have a lot of athletes coming in at like 3, and we got to get them ready, and we can't attend to you guys, and we only have a certain amount of space. And I realized in that moment, I think it was like the universe was telling me like, or it was not even the universe, like I just came to the realization like, oh my gosh, like I've been putting myself in a toxic environment, and I've been keeping myself there. So after that day, I never went back. And those trainers, I hate like leaving without saying goodbye, but those trainers, like eventually I did say goodbye to them, but I had to distance myself from that training room. And first it was a little bit tough because that was, something I was looking forward to. Just going in and, hanging around. The trainers were really cool. They were like a couple years older than me, so they were really cool, really chill, and it was fun. But there was a point where, it was just toxic for me. I wasn't growing. So I finally realized that, and after that, it was pretty much, it felt like me, myself, and I. One second. So then it started with, so that was like the end of the first chapter. Like that was beginning to halfway. Excuse me. The middle was really about the mental. It was really all about the mental and being by myself. And looking back at this, I'm so grateful this has happened. But in the moment, it was terrible. Like it was awful. Like I felt like I was going insane. Like there were nights where I would stay up until like 12 or 1 in the morning, just going on, and I was just like, I would literally just sit here, do nothing, and just think about what was going on in my life, and get so harsh on myself about really no reason. I was just in a negative state of mind. And what this did for me was actually beneficial because I didn't give up. And if you take anything from my story, you probably hear a bunch of stories from injuries, but these stories are unique, and there's always something you should take away. I feel like even me, like I'm not saying like you guys only have to take away my like take something away from my story and other people's, like you know these are all learning lessons, and I actually got comfortable with being by myself, and I think that's such an important skill in life. Is like being comfortable with yourself, being comfortable with your thoughts, your feelings, and just having time to think. And you don't need to I think you should make a time to think here and there. And sometimes for me, it looks like when I go like when I'm sitting in bed, like sometimes I'll just think, and like naturally all my thoughts like spill out. But, sometimes it's good to like, sit here, like sometimes I'll sit here and I'm like, yo, like, what's going on with this? How should I react to this? What do I think about my thoughts on this? And maybe I should think about seeking guidance from someone else. But I don't want to say that realization, but it was like that for months. Like, it was November, December, January, February, pretty much all in March. And that was when, once spring, I was ready for summer to start, spring to start. And eventually at one point between March and April, I started to realize, I was getting comfortable with being alone. And I was finally finding somewhat of peace. But then another thing that came into my life was burnout. I was going to school full time, or like 5 days a week, sorry. I was going to school 5 days a week, around 7 hours a day. I was also teaching, like, interning at a school, and I was working a part-time job. So like Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I was going to work, getting paid. Internship was 4 days a week. It was three for a while, but then it turned to four. And then school, it's just school. Have homework and stuff. So I was experiencing some burnout, and by the time May rolled around, um, I was just so done. Like, I was just so exhausted. And then I was, a lot of times I would just sit back in here and just like, yo, I'm not doing this, I'm not doing that, I'm not doing this, I'm just unproductive. And that really messed with me as well, because now I trained myself to be in a thought of I always have to be doing something. Like, I always have to be working, always have to be working on a side project, just doing anything. And that was really bad for me. So, and even like into the summer, it was still happening where, excuse me, for a while, I was still in burnout mode. And I really wanted to take like a vacation. But I withheld myself on doing that and spending a crap ton of money because I kind of knew it was almost like a phase. Like, I would just go through it and just like eventually just get out of it. And I eventually did. And eventually got out of it. And so other things have happened, but the whole recap was, an injury that, like, brought on new experiences that I was totally uncomfortable with. And it just, like, brought it all into my plate at once. Like, it was just shoved to me all at once. And then the aftermath of it was definitely, like, it was difficult at first, but somehow I got through it. And so, why I'm going to conclude, I'm going on 30 minutes now, but why I bring this up is, these experiences, like, don't ever give up. I know you've heard it like 20 million times, and you're hearing it from someone like me. Don't give up. I've heard it 1,000 times, but truly don't give up. And you'll eventually get to a brighter place. And experiences are part of the journey of growing. you grow to be a better person, and you grow to live a happier and more joyful life. Sometimes stuff like this will happen. And this is what like I've learned, like stuff like this will happen. But don't ever give up. And if you need any help, like reach out and determine if you need help. Like be honest with yourself. Like don't like try to be aware. Like I feel like a lot of times people, and I'm not a psychologist, or a therapist, so don't, this is just what I feel like. Like I feel like people like you take your brain, like almost like take your brain and like what it's thinking and just like analyze it. Like that's what I would do. Like just analyze my emotions, what was like logical, what was like, just take all that and like just think about it. Like look at it and just make an opinion around that. And don't ever give up. There's so much opportunity in the places we live in. And you got to be the one to decide whether you're going to be successful or not. And especially in the past few months, like I feel like I really went to heart about that. I like recently, I should say, like every day I should take it one day at a time, learn, like see what I have done to get 1% better. Like how am I placing another block on my pre-existing tower blocks? How am I getting better? And do the things you enjoy, and work towards stuff. I have a million things, but just don't ever give up. Don't ever give up. And you're gonna have times like summer was definitely a time like that where I was down and just like really no motivation and no like purpose. Like I didn't have a set goal and purpose. But what I realized is, there's always a reason to live. There's always a way to get better in life. And, for me, it looked like, putting money towards stuff that would help me now and in the future. And, having a side project like this where I get better with different kinds of, like, just making content. And I love the growth and just the seeing some of the numbers go up. But I even kind of enjoy the down times when I post something I like to post. Like this is something that I like to post. Sometimes I like to do these talking, and sometimes these videos gain traction, which is kind of crazy. But I think it shows how being yourself is what people what people want to see on this platform, and I want to bring that to YouTube. So that was why my senior year was the hardest year of my entire education career, in my entire life. So, all right. If you made it this far to the video, thank you. You are very few people who actually watch it this far, and I'm so thankful for you to make it this far. If you have struggles in your life, don't give up. Don't ever give up. Have your back when you need it the most. If that makes any sense. Have your back when you need it the most. All right. I am done. Thank you guys so much for everything, the support, just everything you guys give these videos. I really appreciate any support. If you want to subscribe and like, by all means. I'm not going to be one of those YouTubers like, you have to subscribe. I'm like going to hypnotize you. You have to subscribe. You have to subscribe. Like, I'm not going to do that. Just do whatever you want to do. appreciate any support, and hope you guys have a good one. Thank you so much. Peace.